here. We're live. We're here. So excited to be here. So welcome back everybody to our Thursday night live stream. I'm really excited to see you all. I love doing these live streams. I love getting a chance to hang out and talk to you and just kind of let you know about all the things that are going on. And so tonight we have a guest host, Audra, who many of you may remember. She has been here before, and she is following along on her carnivore journey. I love to to highlight and allow you to see people who are in the midst of their journey, because so often you'll look at influencers and they say they lost 100 pounds in 3 weeks and it's all done, and and it's just not like that. That's just not realistic, and I would like us to get a more realistic picture of what health and success is on the carnivore diet. So don't feel bad if you feel like you're not losing at the pace, you're not turning into Halle Berry overnight. That's okay. It's okay. So anyway, Audra, so glad to hear you here, and definitely we want to hear about your journey as we go through our conversation. So feel free to, pepper in where you are and what's happening with you and the state of your progress.
Sure. And I'm really glad you indulged me tonight. I love to cook. I love it. So a lot of times I'll host the family dinners and everything. And I know when I went keto, everybody went keto with me, but I made it taste good. And so now I'm kind of pulling people along, on this carnivore journey. We do get a green veg every now and then, but it's all about the meat.
Awesome. So glad. Wow, we've got a lot of people here. So welcome everybody. So glad you are here. Hey, Lenny and Mommy Does Keto and Stephanie and let's see, Erica and Heather, welcome. And Huddy or Hootie, welcome. So good to see you. Wari, Jimmy ZC, and Hollis, and Daisy. Wow. Okay, awesome. Michelle, so good to see you. Anne, welcome. Okay, so let's just dive right in. So I call this live stream Carnivore Weekly Meal Prep, and it's I'm not giving you a weekly menu. So if you were here for that, I'm sorry, but we are going to talk about like how you do a meal prep. What what's the best way to think about it? What's the best way to structure it? And actually, Audra made a ton of info and put together some slides that I think are going to be really helpful. So we're just going to kind of go through that and and see how that goes. And so we'll have the conversation. Okay, so I'm going to put up the first slide and just kind of run through it, and then Audrey, you can add to it. So hold on.
I was just going to say that I've been a military spouse, so that means that everywhere we've gone, I've done a lot of jobs, and I taught high school before I became a pharmacist. And I tell people that I used to tell my students, if you don't plan to fail if you don't fail to plan. Fail to plan or plan to fail. Yeah, okay. So, but anyway, that's why I put this together, because it's been an evolution for me and my journey. Like, if it was just about eating meat, that would be easy. But sometimes it is about prepping and just kind of being organized and thinking through a process and thinking about your actual lifestyle and all of that. So these were some of the tips and stuff I picked up along the way.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. All right, let me put up the slide, and it's going to cover our faces shortly. Yep. Okay, so why don't you walk us through this real quick?
Okay, so as I mentioned before, for me to be successful, I have to plan to be successful at it. So I had to prep my own situation. And I think, this way of eating, this lifestyle.
Actually, everybody, looks like there's no sound. I don't know if what's happened. Oh, I do see. Audra, you've lost sound.
Oh,
Um, Wait, go ahead and
okay.
speak.
Okay, now can you hear me? Okay.
I can hear you. Okay, everybody, put a thumbs up in the chat if you can hear us. That's weird. Not sure why that is.
Okay. Can you hear me? Daisy B, Mommy Does Keto, Leland Dean Brown Sr.
Let's see.
Okay, I can
Daisy
hear
says you
both.
can hear both.
Ann Williams, Michelle S. I'm calling roll. I did that when I was a public school teacher.
Okay. All right. So others can hear. Okay.
Okay,
Great.
Heather G. Great. Okay, awesome. So the first thing on this is every week I clean my refrigerator. And I do that so that when I meal plan, I kind of know what I have on hand. I kind of get rid of stuff that's taking up very valuable real estate in the refrigerator because I don't want a bunch of leftovers or something that's taking up really good, space that my meat can occupy. Because it's expensive real estate. Like, you don't put your junk on your beachside property. Well, it takes a lot of power to run a refrigerator, and especially if you have a family, like I've had a family, I had to have really specific rules about if you put your leftovers there, you got to eat them and get them out because they're going to be dumped. So I clean my refrigerator every week. It's a way for me to meal plan. It's a way for me to see if, just to make sure I don't miss anything. It was a way for me actually to dump a lot of condiments I no longer use. Like we no longer like buy things like ketchup or whatever. Um, a way to reevaluate type of those things. So I do that every week. I clean my refrigerator and it helps for me to plan everything. I can't find my thumbs up. Oh, yes, I hear you both. Okay, mommy does keto. Thank you. Anyway, so moving right along. Can you hear me, Ede?
Yeah, I can hear you. So I like what you
Okay.
have listed second. Establish collection jars, baggies, and storage locations for these specific things. Like, I think that is, that's not something I think about all the time, but I think it's a super helpful thing to hear.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this, sometimes if I make a roast or something and it is outstanding, you have all of those pan juices. If it doesn't have a home, it may get dumped out if you don't eat it, if you're eating it with your meal. And sometimes the pan juices from like a roast or a chicken or whatever, it's like the best stuff. It's really good. So I actually have collection jars all in my fridge, tons of like mason jars, and it has like, jelly and fat and stuff that I've collected from a lot of my cooking meat. Um, if you next, well, and I use it as a way to stir fry things or saute things or to even add flavor to something. And you can even melt it and put it on top of like scrambled eggs or whatever. Or I like to use the fat drippings. I like to collect a bunch of them and reduce them and make a pan sauce, and then that can go over dry meat. Like if you're gonna sear a steak or something, it's excellent. Um, the second thing is egg whites. So I eat a lot of egg yolk omelets, or I'll eat like three egg yolks to one whole egg. Not necessarily because I think egg whites are bad. It's just because I like the flavor better. I whip it up really, 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 really thick. And then, like, there's some recipes out there like the egg yolk muffins and stuff like that. Well, I have jars and jars and jars of egg whites. And it's so funny. I've been asking
Wait,
my
how
neighbors
long do
what,
egg whites last outside of the egg?
I have a couple of jars in my refrigerator now that's like a month old, and they're still okay. I don't know.
How do
I
you
buy really
judge
good eggs.
whether they are okay or not?
They don't smell bad. I use my nose, and they don't taste bad. Like I don't, So what I have been doing is I've been making a meringue with it and then putting it in a dehydrator because I thought I would try to make that egg white bread with that concoction. It didn't turn out. I think you have to really buy the ingredients. I was trying to skip that step. But like, if any of you live in Seattle and your dogs eat egg whites, or you want to make egg white bread or whatever, call me up. I have mason jars of egg whites. So a lot of times when I'm cooking, I always have baggies that I'm collecting bones or trimmings, fat, skin, whatever I'm doing, whenever I'm collecting stuff, and I have a designated place in my freezer. I call it a boneyard or a stockpile, and that's what I use it
Mm-hmm.
for stock and bones and stuff like that. And it's also a
Mm-hmm.
great place if you're out and you're shopping and you happen to see, I don't know, chicken backs on sale or turkey necks or something. That's something you can grab up. But if you have a designated place for it, a home for it, a boneyard, that's what I call it. That's a great place for it. So,
And that's a word to the wise. I mean, for everyone, the way I used to meal prep was I would kind of figure out what I wanted to eat that week, identify the recipes I was going to use, identify the ingredients that I needed, buy exactly the amount that was needed for those particular recipes, and then, and that was the shopping list. But now I more likely, every time I pass a supermarket, I just kind of duck in to see what kind of sales are going on. And if there's a lot of sales or, there's some really good meat, I just buy everything that's there and then, freeze it instead of just trying to get what I need for the week. And that's a way to really make this more affordable.
I think that's important too, because sometimes when I trim the fat off of my meat, now I render all my own cooking fat. So I just have a stockpile in my freezer where I keep all the fat. Sometimes I've purchased fat from butchers and whatever. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I get meat sometimes online, and someone had a sale on Wagyu fat. I grabbed a bunch of that. And anyway, so when I get enough fat and I'm kind of low on my cooking oil, my cooking fat, then I just throw it in a crock pot and then just kind of let it melt, put it in a jar. Then I have plenty of fat that I can use to saute. So again, if you have those collection places and little baggies and stuff and you're collecting it, you'll always have stock, which I think everybody should have. It makes a good quick meal and everything. And then you should also always have fat. Everybody should have in order to cook. So that's really important. Now, the list that I have is the list that's been very helpful to me. You even see eggshells. I don't know if I'm going to use it for my garden, or I don't know if I'm going to dehydrate it and grind it up and make some type of, I don't know, calcium supplement or mineral supplement. I haven't decided yet. But in any event, the last thing on the list is really important for a lot of people who, especially, are new to this way of eating. You may get curious about cuts of meat, especially if it's on sale at the store. And then, you may go home and you try it. You may or may not like it. So I keep a grind pile. So I actually prefer to grind my own ground meat. And it's basically the stuff I bought on sale or something that would make a really good grind or smash burger or whatever. So
That
that way
makes
there's
me
no.
think of like Sweeney Todd or something. Like where is this meat grinder? How does one operate that? Is this something normal people have in their homes, or is it only something you see at the butcher shop?
This is something for someone like me, a cooking nerd, a foodie, someone that loves to cook, someone that does the holiday meals and stuff like that. Something that owns. Now, my meat
Well,
grinder
for all
came
of
at.
you in the chat, I know we've got some food nerds. Who's got a grinder at home, or who bought the attachment for your KitchenAid? Put it in the chat. I definitely want to know about that.
It's normal. Everybody should. We're carnivores. We should all have meat grinders. Get rid of your bread maker or your pasta machine that I know I bought back, in the early 2000s, late 90s. and get a meat grinder. Get something that's going to handle the food that you actually eat. So, of course, so if you don't have a meat grinder, I'm giving everyone a homework to go get a meat grinder, because who knows, there may be, like as I
Anne
mentioned
says she
before.
has one.
Good job. You're my girl. And you'll make the most amazing smash burgers. You know, one time I saw a huge fatty brisket on sale. I bought the whole thing. I divided it up. I have some for the grind. You know, it has like fat and stuff to it. I also have game meat that I was gifted by a relative, a hunter, that's a little bit more lean. That's going to go on the grind with that amazing brisket. And I have put bacon in the grind with my meat, and it makes the most amazing smash burgers. So if you don't get anything else from this talk tonight, go out and get a meat grinder. And then that way, keep a pile in your fridge, like for the grind, and you will make the most amazing smash burgers and meatballs. And meatballs.
Well, it
So,
looks like quite a few people do. Lenny and Justin as well. Daisy makes hers in a blender, which I guess could work.
wow.
Anne makes deer sausage. Erica asked, is a Ninja blender okay? I don't know.
I've never tried it. Erica, I think you should try it and then let us know.
I have a Cuisinart, and I've used that to to mix up and sort of blend chuck roast and liver. It was not great. I
Because
mean,
of
if
the
you're
liver.
looking for, well, yeah, I mean, there was that too. But I mean, if you're looking for regular hamburger meat, like with the strings and, what you sort of expect, that's not going to happen with the Cuisinart. And it was a little more wet and liquidy than I was expecting. But I made meatballs, and, other people really liked them and liked the flavor of them. And in fact,
At
asked
least,
me how I made them and how they could do it too. So,
oh, okay. So it wasn't just a polite like, right? They liked it.
no, it was like they asked me. And I don't think I didn't explain exactly what I did. So he went out and bought some ground beef and liver. And he was like, this didn't work out as well as what you did. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, I didn't start with ground beef, first off. That's the problem.
So, okay. Well, I'm happy to hear, but like, so knowing that you have meat grinders, how many people have a grind pile in their freezer then? Like, and you grind your own, like smash burger, meatball, meatloaf, chili, whatever you use ground meat for. I'd like to know that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Here we go. So I think we've gotten kind of the way you can create an orderly space. First of all, clear all the garbage out of your refrigerator. That way, you can just kind of focus on those things that are important for you. And I know for me, I spend money on groceries, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. And so I don't have any garbage taken up in my refrigerator. It's taking up space that my meat should occupy. Second of all, like, I kind of have all of these jars and baggies and stuff where if I'm cooking meat or whatever, I'm trimming things.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say if I have a whole chicken and I separate the bones from the chicken because I want to do just the chicken, whatever, I have a place for bones, skin, meat drippings, and all of that. A place for my egg whites, all of that. So now the next part of the list is you've gone to the store, you have your meat, and now it's time for you to prep your meat in a manner that you can get dinner on the table, right? So I prep all my meat hulls, and it takes a lot of work initially, but it makes my job a lot easier. So some of the meat I'll cut in bite-sized pieces or super thin slices or something, and then I freeze things in meal-sized portions. So that's really important. And Ade, I really wish the video worked because you had a great video of you taking your meat, sectioning everything off, wrapping it in foil. Is that on one of your sites?
Well, no, I haven't published that yet. I still have to edit all of it
Oh,
together. There's like, yeah. So hold on, guys. You will. I am, as editing a video of my, grocery haul and meal prep and me making a meal. So that's coming, and I think it'll be a nice looking video. I'm enjoying the video,
yeah, me too.
but
I
not
enjoyed
ready
it
for
too. So
tonight. But I did take a picture of my refrigerator. So if you would like to see, what an Uber carnivore. Um, there we go.
I know when I saw that, I was like, "Girl, you are not joking. Your
Yeah,
refrigerator does not
yeah.
have any plant matter." I mean,
So on the top shelf is an empty plate. So I'm trying to be more careful. I recently cleaned my refrigerator because normally when I defrost meat, I just put it in there with no plate. And then there's always a hole or something in there. So the blood, drips all over the shelf and then drops down the back wall and then drips all the way to the bottom of the refrigerator and it makes a mess. So this time I said, I'm not doing that. So I've got a a plate in there. So stuff is defrosting on a plate. And then I don't know if you can see, there's a little jam jar next to it where I'm taking and saving the fat from the meals that I cook. I'm trying to, I am making the effort to strain it first so that there's not, any kind of meat or anything in there. Some people don't care, don't have a problem with that. I think I'm, a little sensitive to histamine, so I want to make sure that I don't have that going on. Then some friend of mine brought me liver. This is pork liver pate essentially, and these are some syringes for my dog's medicine. This is some liver pate I made, and this is on the doorway. There is some lard. Tallow, from my favorite place that I buy it on Etsy, and some Frank's hot sauce, some vitamin D, and old seltzer water that is a horrible flavor and I'm never going to drink, some random palm wine from Nigeria, which I just have and I don't drink, and then there is some water, and that's the fridge. So,
so you really took that first thing to heart, huh? That's what you've been practicing for a minute, huh?
yeah, yeah. So like you, when I get home with the grocery haul, I divide everything up into 1 pound increments and, wrap it up into aluminum foil and put it all into the freezer. And then and then each day I just take down 2 pounds of meat and that's what's in the refrigerator. So there's never, really anything there. And if there's leftovers, so there often, there aren't, my dog gets them. So there's like
I was going to say,
nothing
you have a
left.
dog. There's probably never leftovers.
Yeah, there's never
Oh, yeah.
leftovers.
So I have to shout out. My son is in the chat, Justin McCoy. Now, I have to tell you the story. When the kids were younger, they each had a cook night. I have 3 kids, and they had to clean the kitchen, they had to cook, shop for the meals, plan for it, and everything. And my son's specialty was cooking meat. So at middle school, he could make great steaks. He was so good at it. And anytime he meal planned, he wanted to do some type of steak meal. So he's in the chat. I just have to embarrass him. Hey, son, Mama's here.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay. Well, so the other thing that I liked about here, so you talked about slicing things thin or bite size. Now, that's not something I've ever done or thought about doing. And, but now that I think about it, yeah, I mean, that's a perfect idea. So I don't know why I don't do it. The only time I do it is when I make jerky, I like to slice it really thin. And it's hard to do that when the meat is, at room temperature. So I usually freeze it first and then I can slice it really thin, for making jerky. So that's the only thing I'll do. And I don't cut up roasts. I make those all at once and then cut them up and divide them in their cooked form, not in their uncooked form.
Yeah, it just depends on what we're having. So I like to make carnitas, which is pork cooked in its own pork fat, super low and slow.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll take a pork butt and a pork belly and I'll cut it into cubes. And then, I have a bunch in baggies, and it's easy then to take that bunch and then make carnitas or whatever with that particular bunch. So it just kind of depends on the recipe that
Mm-hmm.
that I have. So, but yeah, and the reason why I say slice really thin because I wanted to talk about shabu shabu cuts. Like, I know that I had mentioned it before when I was participating in the chat, and you had other cooking themed topics.
Mm-hmm.
So the shabu shabu meat I get from an Asian store, and I think shabu shabu is references a soup that I want to say
Mm-hmm.
Japanese people eat or something, and the meat is like super paper thin, is raw, is rolled in individual portions, and it makes for a really quick meal. So that's
Mm-hmm.
part of my meal prep. I make sure I pick some up. It's a little bit more expensive um, just because it's been cut, like handled a lot. I have seen it shaved meat at regular grocery stores. So if you're looking for like a quick soup or something, you can portion out shaved meat. I've seen that, and I think people make like um, what do you call like this steak and cheese steak or something with it or something like that. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
another type of application for it. Or
Mm-hmm.
fondue is also really good. I like to
Mm-hmm.
make a really flavorful beef broth and then dip fondue in it.
It's
So
funny. I always think of fondue as cheese, but when I went to Sweden, I learned that fondue is a lot of different things. It's not just cheese, and it can be a great way to eat and to prepare food. So definitely something to look back into.
yeah. But in any event, I like to portion things out and then freeze things in individual family size portions. So I handle my hauls. I don't just bring
Yeah.
stuff in. And it's funny. One time I found this, I want to say whole pork belly on sale, and I got it in the mail, and I got this really, really huge side of beef. And we're like, oh my God, where are we going to put it? It didn't even fit inside of a freezer. So we had to get a hacksaw. My husband and I, we had to like use power tools to at least divide it up. But we still, handled it and cut it in individual pieces or individual roasts so that we can handle it. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, like, I when they said that I was buying a whole pork belly, I didn't realize I was buying a whole pork belly because I'd never seen one that big before. But they were like, oh my God, I freaking bought a side of a cow. So, but we handled it.
So wait,
It's
what
great.
was that? Like 30 pounds?
No, how big was that? I don't know. My husband's behind me.
About that, yeah.
Yeah, it was. I just know it was big. It was more
Yeah.
than what 4 feet long.
3 to 4 feet.
Yeah, 3 to 4 feet long. I just know it was
Wow.
really big. Yeah,
Wow.
but we're handling it.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, I have some part of that pork belly, the bacon, in my sous vide now, and that's another thing. I usually have something going, either my sous vide, my crock pot, or something all the time. So whenever you come in my house, you're gonna smell. I'm making stock. I'm rendering fat. I have something in my sous vide or my
Mm-hmm.
crock pot or whatever, slow cooker
Mm-hmm.
or
Nice.
smoker. My husband says he's really proud
Excellent.
of that smoker. We
Excellent.
love our smoker. Yeah.
Well, that's one of the things on the list here. So, well, first you talk about being prepared to do a brine and flavor
Hmm.
bombs, and then the smoker. So we'll talk about the smoker last. But what is this brining? And everybody in the chat, just go ahead and put it in the chat if you brine food. I mean, my experience with brining has been, brining the Thanksgiving turkey. But other than that, I've never brined anything else. But then I've heard about other people brining all sorts of things. And I don't even, I guess I just am realizing that corned beef is brined brisket, maybe. So
Yes.
it's evidently a
Yeah.
thing that people do. I just don't know about it.
So it's funny you say that. Now I brine all of my poultry. So we get, well, I don't really like turkey, but we get chicken or whatever, Cornish game hen, whatever. I always put it in a brine. Um, Now a basic brine is just salt and water, and from what I read on the internet, is a cup of salt for every gallon of water. Um, and sea salt is not as salty as other salts. So that's something to take into consideration because I know that if you use a cup of maybe a Redmond salt instead of sea salt, it may be saltier. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and anyway, I just brine so much now. I
Well,
just
if you're
kind of,
talking about using a cup per gallon, I probably would get the less expensive salts. If
yeah,
that's the kosher salt, get that. Because in my grocery store, like, there's a big box of kosher salt that's like this big. And, when you're doing things in that large a proportion, I don't know if it makes sense to use the like $11 an ounce Redmond sea salt.
okay. But in any event, I know that sea salt is maybe briny is not as salty. Like I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
To me, different salt taste different. But the point is, now I'm not a strictly salt meat person. I do use spices and things like that. So I really enjoy putting all sorts of spices and stuff in my brine, seasonings, whatever, and I just let it sit there. I take it from frozen right to my brine. And the great thing about that is that sometimes if you can't get to it and it's thawed, you don't want it to go bad. But the having it in a brine kind of extends the life and give you a little bit more time to kind of work with it, cook with it until you're ready for it. In my opinion, it makes meat that's not typically moist, like the white meat of the chicken or whatever. Um, and it infuses it with flavor. And so you don't have to season it after you cook it because the brine is already the seasoning, because I do use seasoning in my brine.
Well,
So
wait, before we go on, I realize we really haven't defined, what's a wet brine versus a dry brine. So Stephanie says, I haven't brined before. I've heard of dry brine steak. So what is the difference? And Mommy Does Keto is curious too. So do you know what the difference is?
well, I know what a wet brine is. A wet brine is that proportion to salt, gallon of salt to water, gallon of water per cup of salt. That's completely dissolved, and then you put your meat in it. That's a wet brine. A dry brine is you just put the salt directly on the meat, and then you just let it sit and the air circulates before that. That's my understanding of wet versus dry brine. So one, the salt is dissolved in the water, and then the meat goes in, and one, the salt's directly on the meat itself.
And I think with a dry brine, you're not trying to get So a wet brine, not only is it drawing salt into the meat, but it's also drawing liquid, water, and making it more, more juicy. And so you're not necessarily trying to do that with a steak. And so I would think that that's one of the reasons why you would do a dry brine for a steak. Now, the way that the dry brine works, my understanding is you put the salt on the steak, and then you leave it. And over the course of 30 minutes to an hour, all the moisture in the steak is drawn out to the surface by the salt. And then you have to let it rest, continue to rest, and then that water mixes with the salt and draws that salt, eventually gets absorbed back into the meat, and it's drawing the salt back into the meat, so that the inside of the meat gets salted as well. And I think the salt might do something to the protein fibers, so kind of relaxing them, so it can make the meat a little bit more tender as well. And so, but that's why if you are going to salt your steak, like you should salt the steak and immediately cook it, or, you want to wait and let it have this process of letting the water be drawn out and then drawn back in. So if you salt your steak and you wait a half an hour, like that's the worst possible combination, because now you've drawn all the water out, and and then you put it in the pan and you cook all that water away, and so your meat is going to be tough. But that's not, that doesn't happen with a wet brine. A wet brine is a different thing. So, and in fact, I had read that a lot of chicken or poultry is already brined because it draws water into the meat, makes it, juicier and therefore heavier. So when you purchase it, you're purchasing more water than chicken.
Yeah, that's true. Some of the chicken is injected with like a salt solution sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so so you make a good point. I think it is through osmosis. The salt and kind of exchanges places, goes from heavy concentration to light concentration, but we don't. I mean, I think I'm probably saying more than what I need to say. But the point is, after the brine, this is really important. Once I take the poultry or even the roast out of the brine, or the poultry actually out of the brine, I let it rest uncovered in the refrigerator for a day, and all the liquid drops out and the skin kind of dries out. So if you're looking for the skin to have a good texture when you are cooking it, it has to dry. So after I brine something, about a day or two before I cook it, I just put it in a refrigerator, uncovered, and I let the moisture, I actually put it like on a baking, like a cookie rack or whatever, and I have a pan underneath, and all the moisture drops out, the skin dries up, and it's really, really wonderful that way. Or you're going to get kind of rubbery skin. It's not really good if you don't let it dry before you cook.
Well, Mommy Does Keto asks a good question. Which cuts of meat are good for wet brines?
Well, I wet brine all of my poultry, and I'll tell you this. I made corned beef for the first time ever, and it was amazing, and I will always brine my roast going forward. So I would imagine, since corned beef is not lean beef, but I would imagine lean beef, like if you were going to do like a London broil or a skirt steak or whatever, it may be helpful to brine it first. I would think so, to keep the moisture in the meat. Because it works. Well, it works for chicken really well. I know that my husband makes the only chicken breast that I like, and we brine all the time. Other than that, I'm not.
If you're going to try the London broil, don't buy, a 50-pound hunk of meat, try it, and then, get all mad at us because it didn't work. Start with something. Start with something small. Start with something small, yes, and something on sale, and give it a try. I think that fatty meat, with a lot of connective tissue, that would be, great. But I don't know about leaner cuts, so definitely, you kind of have to see. So you do roast, and this seems like, this might be kind of a silly question, but like when I did turkeys, and I had an 18-pound turkey, like I didn't have anything big enough to hold a turkey and all of the water it needed to be submerged in, and I had to like go buy a big bucket from Home Depot and then rearrange the fridge and take out a shelf so I could actually put it in the refrigerator. So how do you actually do this logistically?
So I have a container. Would you mind getting it? It's in the chicken that I'm brining. It's in the other. That's my husband. He's in the back holding up signs and stuff, trying to give me tips. he's awesome. But anyway, I actually have a couple of containers that I use for brining, and I put it in my refrigerator. And it's because I brine a lot. And like I say, that corned beef was a game changer for me. It
So
didn't
wait,
like I
what is
bought.
corned beef? Like I've heard of corned beef and I've heard of pastrami. Never really, knew like what that meant. I thought it was like a cut of meat, but it's a preparation. So what is corned beef?
So corned beef, and it's funny. Now I got all of this from YouTube, and so it's free information,
All right,
right?
let me try
Corned beef.
googling it right now.
Okay, corned beef is a preparation. You put your beef in this brine solution. I use pickle spices, salt, and I didn't use the pink salt, which is, I think it's sodium nitrate or sodium nitrite. I forget. But that's also what's used in bacon to help preserve it. Well, anyway,
Mhm.
it's a solution of salt and spices. You put the meat in it. It sits in there. I let my corned beef sit in there for maybe about 11 days. And then I took it out, washed the brine out, and then I just kind of prepared it, just kind of roasted it and sliced it. And it was beautiful. And so that's what corned beef is. And I want to say the corn refers to the salt because I guess, and this is from like another YouTube video, I guess the size of the salt was what they use or whatever. It's a specific size of salt. And then that salt was dissolved and used to make corned beef. And that was my understanding. And again, this is information in the webs, like how accurate it is, I don't know. I just know I made really good corned beef.
Okay, so it's beef that has been preserved through salt curing, and it's usually brisket,
Hmm.
and then you slowly simmer it until the meat's tender in that liquid. So how do you make yours when you make it?
Well, I put mine in the sous vide and I just let it cook for like,
With the salt brine.
the salt brine. Oh, I'm sorry. I just made regular brine and I use like a commercial pickling spices. Like it has like the mustard
No, but you
seed, the
put it
celery
in the
seed.
bag with the meat, or you soak the meat for a certain period of time, then take the meat out, put it in the sous vide bag, and then start the sous vide process.
No. So what I did was I prepared the brine and I added the pickling spices to the brine and I actually added celery because celery is a natural form of nitrates or nitrites for preserving. And some of the keto bacon without the salt, whatever, you'll see it sprinkled with celery powder and because it's a way to preserve. So I had celery, I grinded it up. So basically I had my brine liquid with the pickling spices and the celery, and then I put my brisket piece in there and I just let it sit in that brined water for I think I did like 11 days. And then I
Mm-hmm.
took it out of that brine water. And when I sous vide in silicone bags. I don't like to cook in plastic baggies. So I
Mm-hmm.
have a silicone bags and then I sous vide it. I forget the temperature, but I did that it took me like a day and a half, like over 36 hours. It took a long time. And then I took it out. I just let it rest in the liquid that it made. And then once it rested in the liquid that it made, I sliced it and it was tender and amazing.
Well, I have
So,
two briskets in the freezer, so I think this weekend I got a project.
okay, yeah. So this morning I took out a chicken and some chicken wings, and
Mm-hmm.
this is the chicken brine. So it's just a container. I'm gonna see if I could open it and
That's a
show you.
small. I mean, that's a smallish. Those are smallest pieces of meat, so that seems pretty manageable.
Yeah. So this is
Mm-hmm.
I hope I'm holding it up.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I just took a package of chicken wings
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know, I like hot wings and I just put the spices in the brine and then I dried the chicken skin and we put it on a smoker and it makes the best hot wings ever. And then I put There's also a
Wow, that
whole
sounds
chicken division.
amazing. What time is dinner at your house? And I know Mommy does keto. Keto wanted to know what you are making for Thanksgiving.
Oh,
So we're gonna have to do
so
a special Thanksgiving show where we're gonna talk
yeah,
about
we
that
are.
specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because every Thanksgiving is different. I mean, I have a lot of fun, and my family, we're all kind of foodies, and so they're okay if we don't do a lot of traditional dishes, but we always do something fun
Hmm.
and unique. So we've had expensive seafood Thanksgivings. We've had beast feasts where we had a lot of wild game and duck and like other things too. That's kind of pricey, but
Yeah.
it's great, like elk
Yeah.
and buck and
Venison.
venison. Yeah, some other, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
And we just had a bunch of meats. I make a bunch of cheese balls, and we do eat vegetables. So just a
Well,
couple of side
Esther
dishes.
Esther says, Arian, where are you? Are you listening to these complicated instructions? It does seem kind of complicated, but honestly, I think I've wrapped my head around brisket. So I got one thing. I'm going to do that. I do have wings, but I don't think I'm going to do this for that because this sounds a little complicated. Deidre Scott is
It's
asking,
easy. Put salt and water, drop meat, let it sit. Easy, done.
well,
Like,
Deidre Scott is asking for the wings. How long do you let them soak? And I presume, how long do you let them dry?
okay, so for the wings, you can let them soak as little as 3 days. I've kept wings in brine seasoned water for like 2.5 weeks. I had done some wings and I just got busy and we just didn't get to it. I'm like, oh shoot, it's in the brine. They did not go bad. If you left raw wings in your refrigerator that long, you probably would be throwing them out. But 2.5 weeks, I just took them out of the brine. I let them sit for a day, maybe two, uncovered in the refrigerator because the skin has to dry. And then you cook them. You can smoke.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. We like to smoke and grill our wings and stuff. It's good. I'm not the best chicken fryer. I have fried chicken before, and I do alright, but I'm all about that grill.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's easy. Salt water, add meat, done. I mean,
Yeah.
I just do the spices and stuff because, like, but you've got to you've got to try to make your own corned beef.
I'm gonna try the corned beef because I mean I grew up in New York, so there's always where, and I lived on the Upper West Side. I grew up on the Upper West Side, so there were always tons of like really quality delis where you get really good pastrami and corned beef. So I loved eating that stuff as a kid, and or when I had access to it, I just didn't know like what it was, or how it came to pass. So I just thought it was something, you go to Zabar's and then you get your pastrami and that's that.
Well,
So,
it's funny. I was gonna say that I bought corned beef from the grocery store, and to me it tasted a little chemically or sometimes too salty, And the great thing about a brine, once you get a brine solution that you like, it'll be your go-to brine. You can drop your meat in there and then handle it when you're ready, and it's already seasoned.
well, Hollis asks if you reuse the brine.
No, I dump mine out.
Yeah, it seems
And, and,
like
and, and
wise.
I don't know if you can or not. I'm just concerned about meat safety, and I'm not enough of a. I haven't been trained. This is all just, Justin
Hmm.
will tell you. It's just stuff that we've all had to learn together as he was growing up.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like, I feel like in previous generations, you actually learn how to cook and prepare food. You learn something about food safety and how to select food and select meat and stuff. But we don't really learn that now. So I feel like a lot of people who come to carnivore, part of what I have to tell them is, it's there's going to be some transition and it's going to be a little hard. So you're going to have to be committed, and you're also going to have to find your way to a grocery store and get a little comfortable in your kitchen. Doesn't have to be a
Right.
whole production, but you're gonna have to figure out how to cook at home, and that's a surprise for people as well.
Yep. And then worst case scenario, if you get a cut of meat that you didn't really care for or something,
Mm-hmm.
you have now a grind pile, and it would make an amazing burger.
I'm confused by this cut of meat that I don't care for. It all is all of it's fine. Let's see. Regina says she wants a Thanksgiving meal prep or a meal plan. So yes, I'm definitely going to have to do that. You know, when I used to
Okay,
work for when I used to work for Weight Watchers, usually like 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, for a whole week, every meeting would be devoted to like what you're going to eat, like recipes that you can make, what you do if you're making the meal, what to do if you're going to somebody else's house, what to do if, you know, you're going out to a restaurant, and like how to manage the meal. So everybody, you know, we made everybody like write out a plan, like what are you going to do? What is your plan? How's that going to work? And just kind of go through all the details and whatnot. And I feel like it would be great to do something like that for Carnivore, because, you know, the truth be told, like it's hard. That's you know, when you're dealing with nostalgia and, you know, food pushers and like all your old favorites and habit, like you're dealing with all of that, and so you kind of have to decide like how you're going to deal with Thanksgiving. And I would say to people, you know, at Weight Watchers too, like you could decide that you're just going to eat everything and like don't worry about it, and then decide to get back on it on the Friday. But, you know, you got to decide whether that's going to work for you or not, and whether you think you can get back on, because there were definitely people who did that for Thanksgiving, and then I did not see them again until Lent.
January, yeah. Lent.
No, Lent. Not even January. So, yeah, so you got to decide how you want to handle that.
All right.
Okay. Oh, Deidre, I'm so glad you enjoy the topic tonight. That's awesome.
Yeah, get me talking about food. I love to cook, and it'll be hard to shut me down.
Yeah. Okay, so just to finish up the slide, and so the flavor bombs, so meat drippings, compound butters, and condiments, and aioli. I definitely save the meat drippings, and I have not made compound butters. You know, I always think about doing it, and then it's like, butter tastes so good on its own. Like, I'm just like, I don't know what you could add to it to make it better. So I don't know. And then aioli, I would love to have. I just cannot, I don't know. I can't seem to get the whole mayo thing together.
Yeah, I was going to say the one compound butter that I like to make, I use marrow bone, and I take them, you know, I cook the marrow just enough, not where it's melted, but just enough where it's soft, and then I mix it in the soft butter, because otherwise I have a hard time eating marrow. It's a little bit too oily to put in a soup or something. I guess you can add it to a sauce, but like when you put it on a butter and let the butter melt on a steak, you get you get heavenly butter. Like,
so wait, you don't just take a spoon and scoop it out and eat it?
No, like I don't know. That's I honestly, before this lifestyle, it was easier just to put it on bread and smear it, and so now I kind of miss that. So that's why I add it to butter and then smear it on like steak or something like that.
I like when I roast it and I put salt on the top. The salt and the skin of it like gets crispy, kind of like creme brulee, and then it's all soft inside. So I love the soft and the crispy, and eating that together. Yeah.
So I would say back in the day, before my family became educated, we used to suck the marrow out of chicken bones. Like, you know, we'd eat like a leg or something, you know, we eat all the gristle, and we used to clean them bones and open the bones up and suck the marrow out. And then, like, I don't know, we went to college, and all of a sudden educated people don't clean bones like that. Or I don't
I never liked doing it, but yeah, everybody in my family was like, "You can't get more chicken. You haven't finished this." And I'm like, "There's nothing no meat on it." And they're like, "Are you kidding? There's still the joint. There's the cartilage. You haven't sucked out the marrow. What are you doing?"
Like, that's right. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess it's another way to get marrow. But in any event, I don't do that anymore. But I do
Well,
like marrow
perhaps you
bones. I
should go
do
back
like
to it.
mixing it in. Yeah,
Hmm.
honestly, it was, you're getting more nutrition. You're throwing your nutrition away. You should not buy the broccoli and just suck the marrow bone, right? If you want more
Yeah.
nutrition, what?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good look too at a fancy restaurant. It's a,
Oh yeah.
mark of real breeding. Let's see. So Johnny G says garlic butter is good for fighting off vampires. I like what you're thinking. Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and I sometimes I will add like a clove of garlic to the butter. And so what I mean by flavor bombs, like tonight was a really good example. I had this jar of meat drippings that had a lot of fat and it was mixed with jelly and whatever. And I used it to cook some meat crumbles that we ended up making kind of like a chili. It was an all meat chili that went on top of a broth that we had. And so that meat, because I'd already seasoned it, went really, really well in the preparation of the chili to season it or whatever. So that's, and I call them flavor bombs. I also like to do, and I guess it's not carnivore, but like a ginger garlic paste. And add oil to it. You can add ghee or something to it, but it's great if you're making a sauce and you just need a scoop of something quick to flavor it up. So, but anyway, that's what I mean by flavor bombs. Just those like little juices and little things that you kind of keep in your refrigerator because you're collecting those fats and those drippings just to kind of flavor anything you're making. Or it makes a great pan sauce.
All right.
So.
And then the final thing on your list was smoking and grilling, right?
Yeah, and so this comes with a disclaimer. I'm not a fan of batch cooking. I don't like cooking a lot of meat and then reheating it during the week or whatever. I guess it depends on what it is, but if I am imparting flavor, it's really good. So what we do, so about every other week or so, we'll grill a lot of stuff. It's usually stuff I'll take from the brine or, whatever, burgers, lamb chops, I don't know, whatever. And then we will cook it on the grill about 3/4 of the way done. So then the night that we eat that meal, then we just finish it up on the stovetop or whatever. So that's the only batch cooking that we really do, and it's just because I like the flavor of that grill or that smoke flavor. It imparts flavor to me, and then it makes it easy to throw together a meal.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Well, excellent. Wow, we went through one slide. Let me see.
Don't we have about 15 more? Just kidding.
Yeah, no, we're not going through all of the slides. So,
Yeah.
but I love this list. So, people are always looking for what you can do quickly and easily. So, what can you cook quickly? And why don't we go through this slide?
Okay, so these are leaner cuts. Doesn't have as much marbling or connective tissue or bone to break down or anything like that. Those are some of the roasts that you get. And with the leaner cuts, if you cook them too long, I think the muscle fibers seize and they become super chewy and you can't really break them down. So those are best if you're going to do it as a roast or as a leaner cut. Those are best sliced against the grain and then just like they go great in a kebab or like in a meat strip or something like that, like carne asada. That's, I don't know, I'm Mexican, whatever. Certain cuts of meat that goes well. So a lot of times I'll brine these like tri-tip. My husband loves to cook tri-tip. So that's something that we do a brine on. And then we cook it as a roast. And we cook it just enough until the internal temperature is, I forget the degrees, but it still looks pink. It still looks pink on the inside, but it's completely cooked all the way. Or and it stays tender. By the way, after you cook the tri-tip or whatever, you have to let it rest, because if you cut it prematurely, then it will dry out. So you just kind of let it rest, and then you cut it once it's cooled down a little bit.
Well, that's kind of true of every meat. You have to let it rest, and otherwise it'll lose a lot of its juice. I don't know. I let everything sit.
Yeah, so do I. So things like skirt steak, has those long muscle fibers, and so you have to cut it against the grain. And you can do skirt steaks, I think they tend to be flat with long muscle fibers, and that's something, you can sear one side, sear the other side, it's done. If you cook that too long, it's not going to be that great. Yeah, and then leg of lamb. Now, I cooked the leg of lamb super low and slow one Easter, and it was the worst thing I ever made. It was dry and chewy just because I cooked it too long. So leg of lamb, I put in if you're going to cook a roast, don't overcook it list. And so in all of those things, the tri-tip, the skirt steak, the leg of lamb, it makes great kebab. So those are things you can cut in chunks, and then you get I call it kebabable. I like to put meat on
That's a mouthful.
On a steak.
Kebabable.
Yeah.
It's going to make kebabable meat. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and because it cooks really quick, you don't, because if you cook it too long, it'll be tough and dry. So, because remember, it doesn't have that marbling and all of that. It's fairly lean.
Well, I think that's interesting because, I often, from my research, it looks like the fattier cuts of meat are in the front of the animal, and the leaner cuts are in the back. So on a cow, the brisket, the chuck roast, and the short plate, which is the stomach, all of that is sort of in the front. And as you move towards the back, you get to the sirloin, the tenderloin, and then you finally get to the rump roast, which is, the leanest of all. So I assume that's the case on the lamb as well. And that's why the leg of lamb is a very, that's a tough cut of meat, and tough and not fatty. So it's not going to get that, silky, velvety sauce that you'll get with a piece of meat that has a lot of connective tissue. So I made a rump roast where I cooked it at 170 degrees for 9 hours. It was a really big piece of meat. And it ended up being like medium rare. It was essentially roast beef, and it was the most delicious thing I've ever had. It was amazing. So I really, I highly recommend that. So I guess I can understand what you were saying about that leg. Now, would you say you would brine the leg of lamb, or?
Those cuts I have brined before, at least the leg of lamb and the tri-tip.
And that was
good.
And
the skirt steak. Yeah, it turned out well.
Well, the skirt steak is kind of fatty, but the leg of lamb, I'm sorry, the London broil you have not done?
Right. I've not put in a brine before.
Okay. All right. But the leg of lamb you have brined, and you liked it.
I did, yeah.
Okay. So there you have it, folks. It's brineable. And then you've got steaks and steak-like cuts. So I talk about a lot of different cooking methods, but I never talk about sous vide. So I want you to go to town and talk about sous vide, because I know there are definitely fans of it here. And and I have not been serving the sous vide watchers on the Black Carnivore channel. So I am sorry about that, and let's rectify that right now.
Okay, so I'm going to show you my ghetto sous vide setup because it's basically, I bought the appliance, which is the water circulator, and I used like a big old stock pot that I probably got at a garage sale, whatever. And I'm sous videing something now. So I'm going to step back and I'm going to get it. And then I'm going to talk about sous vide. And I have to give my son Justin credit for this because we had never used a sous vide until my son was like, have you done steak in sous vide? And I was like, no. He goes, oh my God. So we got it because he inspired me. And now I swear by it. I put everything in a sous vide. So I'm going to go grab it. It's just behind me. I'm in my kitchen. So I'm going to go behind me with it.
Okay. So I think this is really cool, and I'm excited to see. Wow. All right, I'm going to solo you so that people can
Let's
see more of your screen. So,
okay, let's see. I'm
there
going
you
to
go.
see if I can aim it down somewhere. Whoops. Okay, here it is. Here we go. Can you see this? Let's see.
No, just see you.
To see me. Okay, let's see. Here we go. There's my water circulator. Whoops. Okay, I don't know how to do this. There.
No,
Can you see
that's
the water?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the water circulator. And you see it's in an old stock pot. A lot of sous vide methods come in this big plastic thing. And I don't know. I don't know. I tend to re-engineer stuff. Anyway, I sous vide in a silicone bag because I don't like to cook in plastic. And right now I have some beef belly in it. And if you can see this, the water, I don't have it plugged in, but I set the temperature, and then it takes the water to that temperature and it circulates it. And then it just circulates it. Yeah, and then it's just cooked. It never goes above that temperature. It keeps a perfect temperature. And something about it circulating, let's see, I think my husband plugged it in. There it is. So I just put it in. Something about it circulating, I don't know, it cooks it perfectly. So it never goes above that temperature, and it will maintain that temperature for a long period of time. Now, if I have like a steak or whatever, it only needs to sous vide. I'm going to put this back on my stand here. Okay, let's see.
Well, so I think I'm really excited to see what you are able to make of this because I don't know. I have a sous vide and I did it for a little while and then I kind of lost interest because it would take so long.
Yeah, it does. It's kind of like the crock pot, like it's long. But what I like about it is it gets the perfect temperature. I like mostly rare meat. But what I like about it on cuts of meat with fibers and stuff, it still tastes rare when I eat it, but it's cooked those fibers down. So like right now I have beef belly in it, the sous vide. And so anyway, I guess that's it for sous vide. I'm not it sounds fancy, Mommy Does Keto, but it's actually another way of slow cooking. So like I'm a fan of my crock pot or my slow cooker. So the sous vide is just another way. And like I said, whenever the water circulates, it does something. And I'll tell you this, all of my eggs, whenever we want like a poached egg, something, I put the egg in the sous vide. I'm not a fan of boiled egg whites because they taste rubbery. But there's something, I don't know what the sous vide does to egg proteins. I don't know enough about that. But a lot of times they come out creamy and really good.
Like a custard.
Yeah, almost like a custard. And we call them custard eggs. So, like, one of my favorite breakfasts is like I like to make crab cakes or my shrimp croquettes or salmon croquettes. And then we'll put an egg in the sous vide. And sometimes the whites kind of just, it's almost like water. It melts away, and there's a tiny white that surrounds this custard yolk. And I put that on top of a salmon croquette or a shrimp croquette or something, and it makes a really good brunch.
Wow, that sounds crazy fancy. And Esther says, Audra, it sounds like you're a serious cook who cooks quite a bit. Fancy.
I don't mess around.
I like it. I appreciate it. It's important to, to put your true attention onto your passion and let it,
Yeah.
let your skills shine.
Yeah. And the
Yeah.
great thing about it is I'm eating my way to health. This is the most nutritional, dense food that we can get. And it's a way to eat my way to health. So my indulgence is not something that I can only have on my birthday, like a cake or something. Not that I do that. But the point is, my indulgence is something that I can eat every day. So,
Yeah. All right, let's go to the last slide so we don't run out of time. And so here are the cuts that should go low and slow. What do you say about that?
so all of those cuts, if you see, they all have a lot of fascia, which is that white membranous stuff that sometimes you'll see on the back of ribs, the bone part of the ribs, or surrounding muscles. You'll see connective tissue like tendons or ligaments. I think ligaments connect the muscle to the bone. Um, Tendon, I think, connect bone to bone. I don't remember. It's been a long time since I taught science, whatever. But anyway, they have, when those things break down with the low and slow cooking, then it just kind of gives this velvety sauce and it coats the meat fibers and it's delicious. So like these are the examples. A lot of spine meat, there's a lot of connective tissue like lamb neck is amazing, and oxtail, the shank, the tongue, believe it or not, it doesn't have so much a lot of connective tissue, but it is a type of meat that if you cook low and slow, it becomes tender. And the one thing I want to say about tongue, the first time I had it was at a Basque restaurant, and everybody swore about it. I thought, oh God, it's going to be gross, and it was amazing. It was so delicious. So, and then like our local taco truck serves tongue tacos, and it is delicious. So with the tongue, I want to encourage everyone to try it. Like cook it low and slow, boil it till it's tender, and then peel the outer part of the tongue. That's the tough meat. Those have all the all the stuff you don't want to eat, and then the tongue meat is on the inside of that. But
Yeah, it's
anyway,
supposed
so
to be
like
like a real delicacy in Mexico, like tongue tacos and it's
yeah,
supposed to be, it's very, very fatty as well, so it's
it
really a
is.
delicacy. It's a
And what
little
I
much to look at to cook, but once you
yeah,
get through all that,
it's
it's
ugly.
tasty.
It is really, really ugly. And I'll tell you this, I went to a Mexican restaurant last week and I asked for 10-ton tacos, no tortillas. And they're like, you just want meat? Yeah. No necesito tortilla? No. And so they gave me a big thing of tongue and meat, and it was so good.
Hmm.
Delicioso.
Yeah.
so, so you too can eat at a Mexican restaurant. It's possible.
And that's a word to the wise. Talk to your waiter and tell them like you want the meat. Can they give it to you? Like what price will they give you? A half a pound or whatever amount that you want, and see what they'll say, because they're gonna work with you. They want to, they want to feed you. They
They
want to
want
bring
to
you
sell you
food.
food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it may be that they'll give you like an entree size and just, and they're not charging you for like 10 little tacos and the little meat that goes inside it, but they give you like an
Yeah.
actual portion. So I don't know. You should just ask. Hmm.
Yeah. So, but anyway, but you see the list. Um, I love meat next to the bone. It's so good. I don't know if it's because when you cook it low and slow, a lot of that connective tissue and marrow and all of that stuff bathes the muscle fibers and just makes it so delicious. I don't know. I just know it tastes good. So those are the low and slow
Hmm.
cuts. And you
Yeah.
cannot go wrong with low and slow.
Yeah. I love short ribs, and I like the flanken cut ones, which is they're cut differently, and so they're like long and flat and thin. But I also like the big square ones that have the one bone in them and a big hunk of meat. But those often have a lot of that connective tissue that you're talking about. So there's like a certain amount of meat, some fat, and then a lot of, I guess, tendon or ligament or whatever it is. So I eat some of it because I know, okay, this is my vegetable, this is my carnivore vegetable, the thing that's good for me that I don't really want to eat. So I try to eat as much as I can, but then a lot of it goes on to my dog, who's like, yes, thank you, love it all. But I wonder sometimes if I should save it and put it back into a bone broth.
Yeah, you know what? Sometimes I do that, especially if I paid a lot of money for it. Like, we'll eat off of it, but then we'll save it for some stock. So, and it's funny you mentioned flanken cut, because we used to call them galbi or Korean style, because that was the first time I ever had them is when we were in Korea, and then that was the way they came. And I'm thinking, how'd they get that bone? Like, well, I didn't know much about meat or whatever in that, but it's delicious. And that's my husband's second favorite cut besides tri-tip. He loves we call them the Korean style or the galbi style or the bulgogi style ribs. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely my favorite too. Okay, let's see. Forks WA Carnivore says, oh my god, genius with the sous-vide setup. I've had one in my cart on Amazon forever. Just gonna do it your way.
Yeah.
Well, wait,
a big old pot.
So so when I got a sous-vide, all I got was that stick thing. I still had to come up with the pot myself. I had to come up with the contraption to put it in something to sit in the water. So
and
are people buying
all
kits?
I have is the sous vide 2. Let's see. Okay, there we go. And this is all I got. So I'm a kind of use what I have type of girl. That's why I call that my ghetto sous vide setup, because it's just a big old pot, and and it's enough to circulate water, and I have like I mentioned before, my beef belly inside or whatever. And it's gonna sous vide for probably a day and a half.
Yeah. Wow. So good stuff. Good stuff. Well, I will definitely post pictures of me brining the brisket whenever that does happen. Hopefully, I'll probably do it over the weekend. And you say brine it for 24 hours, right? For the brisket.
Are you making? I did it for 11 days.
Okay, that's
I did it for no, and I guess that, as I mentioned before, I did it for 11 days because I use spices you probably don't. So I think the 11 days is to get the flavors maybe to penetrate, maybe. I think if you're just gonna brine it, for a couple of days and then cook it, it will probably be okay. But I wanted a particular flavor profile for the meat.
Okay, so I guess I should start the brine tomorrow with the expectation of cooking on Saturday or Sunday. Maybe I'll do it on Sunday. So that sounds like a good Sunday dinner.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you guys for being here. Oh my gosh, you were really amazing. Thanks for hitting the like and subscribe button. And, and thank you, Manosphere, for reminding everyone to keep hitting that like and subscribe button, because that is the best way to make this content surface and be, and have YouTube serve it up to people. So, that's always a struggle for smaller channels. And so when you engage, when you like, when you write comments and all of that, when you share it with other people, that really helps. So I really appreciate it. I appreciate all of you being here. And I am excited to continue this conversation. So, Audra has a ton more information about cooking and about food prep. So we are going to do this over time. And so we're going to come back with some more info. But I learned a ton tonight. So thank you, Audra. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And where can everybody find you if they've got follow-up questions?
Oh boy. I'll have that answer the next time we come on.
Wait, but aren't you at least on Facebook or Instagram?
Yeah, I am on Facebook under my name, just Audra McCoy. And so
Okay.
I am on Facebook, and I think it is my picture on the front. Like I don't have a picture of a flower or a dog or something, you know.
Okay, so
But
everybody
I
look
hope,
for you, Audra McCoy, on Facebook. They can send you by messenger. They can send you questions if they need to.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Hmm.
And I am a food nerd, and I think this is great. And I think the next time we meet, maybe you can post on Facebook, hey, bring your ideas. Let's collaborate. Let's make this holiday season a great
Hmm.
one. And then, we can get on, we can discuss ideas, and I think that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, Mommy Does Keto says you need to do a carnivore cooking channel. I definitely think so. I agree. I try, but I can't compare. So yeah, I definitely think so. But we'll get you on here more often, and we'll do more of this because this was super helpful. Um,
Yeah, and I appreciate you indulging me. I've been wanting
mhm,
to participate in your food prep discussions for ever since I started following you. And I'm thinking,
mhm.
I want to do that. I want to speak. So thanks so
Yeah.
much for indulging me.
Sure, absolutely. I really appreciate having you. Okay, everybody. So stay tuned for next week. I did the interview with Nina Teicholz. It was absolutely fascinating. I think you're going to be really excited about it. And so that I believe is coming on Tuesday. And yeah, we'll go from there. So have a great weekend, and I'll see you all later.